Alright, today we're going to take a look at how to change the VRO fuel pump in a Johnson or Evinrude Outboard. It's a part of my voice. I'm kind of getting over a cold. Really want to put this off a couple more days, but it needs to get done. Alright, I'm going to gather up some tools and parts and show you that in a minute, and then we'll get started. Alright, so here's what we have so far. We have our pump, actual Johnson pump that I ordered online. Now your pump may be orientated in different ways on your engine. Some of them are behind the air baffle, some of them are on the side. The one we're doing today, it's on the side. Here's your plug. It's going to connect. This one goes in this position. See, we got two hoses. Connection down here and a connection up there to look for, and we're changing some other connection pieces and crankcase fittings. We'll probably have to match those up on the old pump. And we need a driver, a couple of all the hoses are put on with compression type clamps, so we'll use these needle nose to get those off. A couple of them are put on with zip ties that should just slide off. And then we'll need a Torx driver to take off the screws. Alright, here's a closer look on the motor itself. Get my shadow out of the picture. Here's the VRO. See, there's a connection up top. There's a plug that goes somewhere underneath this panel, so we're going to have to take this panel off so we can get access to the plug, and then the hoses on the bottom, connection on top, Torx screws. So let's go ahead and get started removing the old one from the motor. Alright, turn the motor a little bit so I can get a better look. I'm going to take off this, what looks like a cover first. Alright, looks like this bottom plug is going to be the one. Alright, here we go. Three hoses on the bottom, one on the top. That was easy enough. Have to pay attention to the orientation of these fittings for when we get our new pump set up. Alright. Slid off that looks like a vacuum or some kind of, oh no, that may in fact be the oil line. Alright, I went and got me a little flathead just so I could pry a little bit on that hose. Yep, and it's off. Looks like our pump's pretty much clear now. One of these Torx screws. I had a better Torx driver, but tools have a tendency to disappear. Alright, that's one. Alright, I dropped the Torx bit on the ground there. Had to find it. Be a little more careful this time. Second Torx screw is out. That's the third. And look, that pump wants to come out. And there it is, removed. quick and easy. Now, as I said before, you want to be careful. All of this is a very expensive area. You don't want to break any of these little nipples and tips. It's all plastic components. Alright, we need to make these two pumps look the same. Alright, we need a straight nipple out that side, so let's go into our little pack. Getting fuel all over the table. This appears to be the straight white nipple. We want that to come in here. It's just a question of whether there's an O-ring or not. Alright, so we're going to check underneath here to see if there's an O-ring. Probably could just read the instructions, but I am going to leave this pump together. Yep, and there's an O-ring seal, so this pump is going to end up being a spare pump that I'm going to keep on the boat. I recently rebuilt this pump, but when I took it apart, I noticed that there was a seal problem in the middle near the shaft that I'm going to try to correct and keep this as a spare. And I swapped it out from a different boat that I had. Alright. O-ring. I think I'm going to get a little grease on there. Alright. Alright, so we located the white nipple and small flange. We needed an O-ring in there. I checked it to make sure that this one had an O-ring. It did. So we found the appropriate size O-ring. Used a little bit of lubrication to slide the nipple in, and then put the flange down and gently tightened it, since it is a plastic housing, to secure it in place. So this looks right. Now we have to put a 90 to match this pump. 90 flange in there, and it looks to be this flange as opposed to the white one. And that does in fact fit in there, and I would imagine an O-ring goes on there as such. Just a little. Now it's not quite 90 degrees. I don't know if you can make that out. It's a little bit off, so let's make it. We're gonna have to see how we're gonna get in there. I guess I'm gonna tighten that side first and then clamp the other side. Got both screws started. I'm going to tighten down. This other one I think is pretty tight already. I'm going to line up the flanges, see if I can still move them. Looks like I could go a little more. Alright, they seem about to be in the same place. Now I'll tighten the other side. And now we have a perfect match on the pumps. Just have to reinstall onto the motor. Alright, time for the reinstall. I think we'll fasten up this top torque screw first. that pump back in there. Now, I have to warn you again about being gentle with all this. Now there's a check valve in the crankcase and some other parts that came with the kit, but we're not going to change that today, since we know what the problem was. That little seal I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention it, because I know I'm going to be editing some of it. Took me a little long. I was dropping the screws quite a bit, so I had to edit out sections. But it's a little seal that kept slipping out of the other one. I had rebuilt it with a kit. And when that didn't pan out, I decided I'm going to keep that other one as a spare after I rectify the problem with that seal. But it's not a situation that I would want this motor to run on full time. So keep the other one as a spare. No need to go too tight, just snug. And now we're just going to reconnect some of the tubings. Alright, that one's easy enough. It's missing a zip tie. We're going to go ahead and rectify that. Okay, this one on the bottom. Seems pretty stiff. This one, the clamp was not in the correct position, so we'll rectify that. And then the last one was the oil, which we're going to prime the oil and prime the fuel. Now, since I'm putting this on here, make sure it's taping. I personally feel that you should run the motor off of a premix solution with oil and gas together, at least for a while, because I will, or you will, or whoever, will get a no oil alarm for a couple of seconds while it's running, for the oil to pump to the sensor and take the code off and get into the carbs or engine again. But I'm not going to do that, so do as I say, not as I do. So you would want to run it off of a premix until it pumps enough on its own, and you can switch back to the tank. I always, on my electrical connections, like to put a little bit of dielectric grease in there to stop that corrosion. Alright, that plugs in. I'm going to take it out again, put it back in. Now, part of putting this plug into this holder is that it secures the plug from slipping out. It's got some plastic like tongs there that hold it, keep it won't come apart now. Alright, double check. We have our electrical connection reapplied. This hose on the bottom hoses. This hose is on. The only thing is we could use a zip tie right there. So I'm going to go get one of those real quick. And then we're going to pump the balls. There's a ball in the oil and a ball on the fuel. And then we'll crank the motor up and see what we got. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put this panel back on. Get that together. So, not quite as hard as you would have thought. Although, I can't help but stress the importance of making sure that you're capable of doing something like this, so that you're comfortable with it, because you can completely wreck your engine if you were to run it without the proper oil mixture. So you need to have all the rest of your systems working properly, including your oil alarms, and then, if, like I said, you should run it off of a premix separate tank until your alarms go away. If your alarms don't go away within 20 to 30 seconds, you may have a problem, and I would not suggest running it. I wouldn't suggest doing it this way at all. Remember, follow all your manufacturer's instructions and your shop manual instructions. And if you don't think you can handle a job like this, it's best to just get a professional. Okay, so I'm going to go prime up the fuel, prime up the oil, and we'll give it a crank and see how it goes. Alright, it's a little while later. When I last left you, I changed the VRO pump. When I went to go prime the oil, this is the problem that I ran into after a couple of pumps. The little tip broke off, so I had kind of a difficult time finding a 1/4 inch primer bulb. Had to order them, and now got that in and just finished the job of replacing that, and also the filter in the oil tank down there. Check out my videos if you want to see how that's done. I made a separate video how to replace the screen in the oil tank and the oil primer bulb. But we're fixing to go ahead and prime up the fuel pump with oil. I'm going to disconnect the oil line again from the pump it through. Since we did have a break in the line, there's probably air in that line. I want to get past that and make sure I have a steady oil flow to the fuel pump, and then we'll go ahead and fire up, and probably have a no oil alarm for a little while, but then should be good to go. Alright, we just got the first bit through. There was quite a bit of air. I didn't think it was going to prime, but I'm squeezing it now. If you can make that out, the oil coming through. It's much harder to squeeze this than the gasoline ball. Alright, I'm going to continue that until I think maybe about half of that bottle should be adequate to make sure that hose is all clear of air. Alright, I gave the bulb a final pump, then took the hose out of the Coke bottle and reattached it to the fuel pump nipple right there, secured the clamp, and I think we're about ready to go. Alright, we're going to give it a crank and see what happens. I primed up the fuel, and you saw me prime up the oil. Well, depending on which video you're watching. Let's give it a shot. Full alarm, so we did a pretty good job priming that oil. Look, coming out the exhaust, that's a good sign that it is burning oil as it should. It did, after all, a 2-stroke. Alright, looks like we got a winner. Only thing left to do now is to clean off this leaf debris and put her in the water. Thanks for watching.